On the morning of June 8, 793, the monks of Lindisfarne had no idea that their world was about to end. They woke before dawn, as they always did. They filed into the church for their first prayers of the day, as they always did. They moved through their daily routines with the quiet discipline that had defined monastic life for centuries. The island was peaceful. The sea was calm. The weather was clear. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. But somewhere beyond the horizon, something was moving toward them. Something that would change not just their lives, but the entire course of European history. The Longships were coming. The Vikings were coming. And by the time the monks realized what was happening, it would be too late. This is the story of the day that changed everything. This is the story of the raid on Lindisfarne. This is the story of the moment when the Viking Age truly began. Let me take you back to that morning. It is early summer in the year 793. The day is June 8th. The location is Lindisfarne, a small island off the coast of Northumbria in what is now northeastern England. Lindisfarne is home to one of the most important monasteries in all of Christendom. This monastery has been there for nearly 100 years. It was founded by Saint Cuthbert, one of the most revered saints in the Christian world. The monastery is famous throughout Europe. It is famous for its scholarship. It is famous for its monks. It is famous for its treasures. Kings and nobles from all over Europe have heard of Lindisfarne. The monastery is wealthy. The monastery is powerful. The monastery is, in the eyes of the Christian world, a place of great importance and great holiness. The monks of Lindisfarne are not ordinary men. They are some of the most educated people in all of Europe. They have spent their entire lives studying. They have spent their entire lives copying manuscripts by hand. They have spent their entire lives preserving knowledge that might otherwise be lost. The library at Lindisfarne contains thousands of manuscripts. These manuscripts include biblical texts, theological works, histories, and scientific treatises. These manuscripts represent centuries of human knowledge and wisdom. The monks have dedicated their lives to preserving this knowledge. They have dedicated their lives to copying these texts so that future generations will have access to them. This is their purpose. This is their calling. This is what gives their lives meaning. But on the morning of June 8, 793, the monks of Lindisfarne have no idea that their world is about to change forever. The monks wake up as they always do. They go to the church as they always do. They pray as they always do. They begin their daily routines as they always do. The morning is peaceful. The weather is good. The sea is calm. There is nothing to suggest that this day will be different from any other day. There is nothing to suggest that this day will mark the beginning of a new era. There is nothing to suggest that this day will be remembered for more than 1,000 years. But somewhere out on the sea, somewhere beyond the horizon, something is happening. Longships are moving through the water. These are not merchant ships. These are not fishing boats. These are Viking ships. These are the ships of Norse warriors who have sailed from Scandinavia. These are the ships of men who have decided that the time has come to raid the wealthy monasteries of England. These are the ships of men who have heard stories of the treasures that are kept in these monasteries. These are the ships of men who have decided that they will take those treasures for themselves. The Vikings who are sailing toward Lindisfarne are not the legendary Vikings that we know from the sagas. They are not the great commanders like Ragnar Lodbrok or Ivar the Boneless. They are not the leaders of great armies. They are raiders. They are warriors who have come together for a specific purpose. They have come together to raid Lindisfarne. They have heard that Lindisfarne is wealthy. They have heard that Lindisfarne has treasures. They have heard that Lindisfarne is defended by monks, not by soldiers. And they have decided that Lindisfarne is a target worth attacking. The Vikings who are sailing toward Lindisfarne have no idea that they are about to change the course of history. They have no idea that this raid will mark the beginning of the Viking Age. They have no idea that this raid will be remembered for more than 1,000 years. They simply know that there is a monastery on an island, that the monastery is wealthy, and that they can take the wealth. They simply know that they are warriors, and that this is what warriors do. They simply know that they have come a long way from Scandinavia, and that they want to return home with treasure and glory. The Vikings have heard stories about Lindisfarne from traders and merchants who have traveled to Scandinavia. They have heard about the gold and silver that is kept in the monastery. They have heard about the jewels and precious stones. They have heard about the manuscripts that are worth enormous amounts of money. They have heard that the monastery is not well defended. They have heard that there are only monks there, no soldiers, no warriors. And they have decided that Lindisfarne is the perfect target. They have decided that they can raid Lindisfarne, take the treasures, and return home with enough wealth to make them rich and famous among their people. As the morning progresses, as the monks of Lindisfarne go about their daily routines, the Longships approach the island. The Vikings can see the monastery. They can see the church. They can see the buildings where the monks live. They can see the treasures that they have come to take. And they prepare for the attack. They prepare their weapons. They prepare their shields. They prepare themselves for what is about to happen. The warriors check their swords and axes. They check their armor. They prepare their minds for battle. They prepare themselves to do what they have come to do. And then someone sees them. One of the monks, or perhaps one of the servants of the monastery, looks out toward the sea, and he sees the Longships. He sees the Viking ships approaching the island. He sees the warriors preparing for an attack, and he raises the alarm. He runs to the church. He tells the other monks what he has seen. He tells them that Vikings are coming. He tells them that they are under attack. The alarm spreads through the monastery like wildfire. Brothers abandon their work. Priests leave their prayers. Everyone rushes to understand what is happening. Some of the older monks remember stories they have heard, tales of Norse raiders from distant lands. But these are just stories. These are things that happen to other people, in other places. Not here, not at Lindisfarne, not to them. The monks do not know what to do. The monks have never been attacked before. The monks have never seen Vikings. The monks have never experienced warfare. The monks are men of God. They are scholars. They are priests. They are not soldiers. They are not warriors. They do not know how to fight. They do not know how to defend themselves. Some of the younger monks are terrified. Some of the older monks try to remain calm. Some of the monks think about running. Some of the monks think about hiding. But where can they go? Lindisfarne is an island. There is nowhere to run to. There is nowhere to hide. And so they do what they know how to do. They gather in the church. They pray. They hope that God will protect them. They hope that their faith will be enough. They hope that their holiness will somehow shield them from harm. They pray to God to save them. They pray to the saints to intercede on their behalf. They pray to Jesus Christ to protect them from the Vikings. They pray with all the faith and devotion that they can muster. But even as they pray, even as they hope, they know in their hearts that prayer may not be enough. Because at that moment, the Longships reach the shore. The Vikings jump out of their ships. They run up the beach. They run toward the monastery. They run toward the church. They run toward the treasures that they have come to take. And the monks, realizing that prayer will not save them, begin to run. They begin to hide. They begin to try to escape. Some of the monks run toward the cliffs. Some of the monks run into the countryside. Some of the monks hide in the buildings. Some of the monks lock themselves in the church. But there is nowhere to escape to. Lindisfarne is an island. There is no way off the island except by ship. And the Vikings control the ships. The Vikings control the shore. The Vikings control everything. The monks are trapped. The monks are helpless. The monks can only watch as the Vikings begin to destroy everything they have built. The Vikings enter the monastery. They enter the church. They see the treasures that are kept there. They see the gold. They see the silver. They see the jewels. They see the manuscripts that have been carefully copied by the monks over many years. They see the reliquaries that contain the bones of saints. They see everything that the monastery has accumulated over nearly 100 years. And they begin to take it. They begin to destroy it. They begin to burn it. The Vikings are not interested in the manuscripts. The Vikings do not understand the value of knowledge. The Vikings see only objects that can be carried away and sold. They see only treasure that can make them rich. The monks watch in horror. They watch as their life's work is destroyed. They watch as the treasures that they have carefully preserved are taken away. They watch as the church that they have worshipped in is desecrated. They watch as the monastery that has been their home is torn apart. Some of the monks try to resist, some of the monks try to fight back, but they are no match for the Vikings. The Vikings are warriors. The Vikings are trained fighters. The Vikings are armed with swords and axes and shields. The monks are priests and scholars. They have no weapons. They have no training. They have no chance. Some of the monks are killed. Some of the monks are wounded. Some of the monks manage to escape. But most of the monks are forced to watch helplessly as everything they have worked for is destroyed. The raid lasts for hours. The Vikings systematically go through the monastery, taking everything of value. They take the treasures, they take the manuscripts, they take the reliquaries, they take anything that can be carried away. They burn the buildings that cannot be carried away. They destroy the church, they destroy the library, they destroy everything that represents the wealth and power of the monastery. The smoke rises from the island, the flames consume the buildings, the treasures are loaded onto the Longships. But what the Vikings do not understand, what they cannot possibly understand, is the significance of what they are destroying. The manuscripts they are burning contain centuries of knowledge. The reliquaries they are taking contain the bones of saints that have been venerated for generations. The treasures they are stealing represent not just wealth, but the spiritual and intellectual heritage of an entire civilization. The Vikings see gold and silver. They see objects that can be carried away and sold. But they do not see the loss that they are causing. They do not see the centuries of work that are being destroyed. They do not see the knowledge that is being lost. They do not understand that they are not just raiding a monastery. They are erasing history, and when they are done, when they have taken everything that they can take, when they have destroyed everything that they can destroy, the Vikings return to their ships. They load the treasure onto the Longships. They prepare to sail away, and then they leave. They sail back out to sea. They sail back toward Scandinavia. They sail back home with their treasure and their glory. The monks are left behind. The monks are left to survey the destruction. The monks are left to count their dead. The monks are left to try to understand what has happened. The monks are left to try to rebuild what has been destroyed. But they know that nothing will ever be the same. They know that the world has changed. They know that the age of peace and safety is over, and they are right. Because the raid on Lindisfarne is not an isolated incident, it is not a one-time attack, it is the beginning of something much larger. It is the beginning of the Viking Age. It is the beginning of a period of history that will last for more than 200 years. It is the beginning of a period during which Viking raiders will attack monasteries and towns and cities all over Europe. It is the beginning of a period during which the Vikings will become one of the most powerful forces in the medieval world. Here is what I find remarkable about this story and what I think we need to understand about the beginning of the Viking Age. The Vikings did not appear suddenly out of nowhere. The Vikings did not emerge as a fully formed military force. The Vikings were not organized by a central authority. The Vikings were raiders. They were warriors who saw an opportunity and took it. They were men who had heard stories of wealthy monasteries in England and who decided to go and take the treasures for themselves. They were men who were skilled at sailing and fighting and who used those skills to their advantage. And the raid on Lindisfarne was successful. The Vikings took treasure. The Vikings took glory. The Vikings took stories that they could tell when they returned home. And when they returned home, when they told those stories, other Vikings heard them. Other Vikings became interested. Other Vikings decided that they too wanted to go to England and raid monasteries and take treasure. And so the raids began. One raid led to another raid. One group of Vikings led to another group of Vikings, and within a few years, within a few decades, the Vikings were no longer isolated raiders. They were a force that could not be ignored. They were a force that would shape the future of Europe. The monks of Lindisfarne did try to rebuild. They did try to restore their monastery. But Lindisfarne was never the same. The monastery was attacked again in 875. The monastery was attacked multiple times over the next century. Eventually, the monks gave up. They abandoned Lindisfarne. They moved their treasures to other monasteries on the mainland. They left the island to the Vikings, but the legacy of Lindisfarne lived on. The raid on Lindisfarne became a symbol of the beginning of the Viking Age. The raid on Lindisfarne became a turning point in medieval history. The raid on Lindisfarne became the moment when the world changed. And for more than 1,000 years, historians have studied this raid. For more than 1,000 years, people have tried to understand what happened on that day. For more than 1,000 years, the raid on Lindisfarne has been remembered as one of the most important events in medieval history. The Vikings who raided Lindisfarne did not know that they were making history. They did not know that their actions would be remembered for more than 1,000 years. They did not know that their raid would mark the beginning of a new era. They simply knew that they were warriors and that they had found a target worth attacking. They simply knew that they had come a long way from Scandinavia and that they wanted to return home with treasure and glory. They simply knew that they had succeeded in their mission. But in succeeding, in taking the treasure from Lindisfarne, in destroying the monastery, the Vikings set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of history. They set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the Viking invasions of England. They set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the creation of the Danelaw. They set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the eventual unification of England. They set in motion a chain of events that would shape the future of Europe for centuries to come. On that morning in June of 793, the monks of Lindisfarne had no idea what was about to happen. They had no idea that their monastery would be destroyed. They had no idea that their treasures would be taken. They had no idea that their world would change forever. They only knew that it was another day. They only knew that they had prayers to say and work to do. They only knew that they were safe in their monastery, protected by their faith and their God. But they were wrong. The Longships were already there. The Vikings were already coming. And nothing could stop what was about to happen. What happened on Lindisfarne on that June morning in 793 changed everything. A small monastery on a remote island became the spark that ignited an entire age. The Vikings who sailed away that day had no idea they were leaving behind the beginning of an era that would shape the future of Europe for centuries to come. The raid on Lindisfarne is one of the most important events in medieval history. It marks the emergence of the Vikings as a major force in European civilization. It marks the moment when the world shifted on its axis. And it all began with the arrival of Longships on a peaceful summer morning when the monks were at prayer and the sea was calm.